Professor, just a moment. Let me ask you. You've been harping on 4% for education.
Yes.
With all the consultation and public engagement, 4% was still allocated for education. What then do you think went wrong with the consultations that held?
Well, what went wrong is that it is the mindset of the legislators.
Does it all fall on the legislator's lap now, or
no,
what happened
the
to
mindset
those
of, let me say,
the
the executive and the legislators, and let me explain. The very moment, and the Minister of Finance did allude to that, the very moment you spend between less than 14–15% on capital, and current takes the lion's share. And what do you add to that current? Is a situation where you are encouraging the opulent lifestyle of both the executive and the legislator. That is what it means. That is what it means. And in that case, you are going to have a stunted growth. You are going to have a stunted growth because you have not decided that we need to lift this country out of poverty to wealth. And the only way you can lift the country out of poverty to wealth is to fund education and vocational training. If you do that within the next 5 years, Nigeria will be a different story, just like in South Korea. But unfortunately, this is not the case. So when we come back to this kind of debate next year, we will have stunted growth, or we did not implement the budget because the price of oil fell. The people who are going, the countries who are going to borrow us money are not able to borrow us money because they are not too sure we can refund the money they borrowed. Right now in the budget, we are going to spend about 27% of the budget to pay back our debt.
The service.
Service. Just sorry. Finally, we have internal sources of funding our budget. We have internal sources of funding our budget, but we are not looking towards that direction. Unfortunately.
Prof, let me just say something. You see, when you look at it, we have about local funding. We have to borrow locally. The government has to borrow locally as well. And they say they will be borrowing 1.252 trillion. And they are going to borrow 1.067 trillion internationally. So that has been, considered in this as well. So if you now consider that there's going to be local borrowing and there's going to be international borrowing. So that has even given us, but what I'm looking at is even if we were going to borrow, my concern has always been, even if we borrow money, are we going to use it for what we borrow it for? The lender wants to know, and that is why they keep bringing conditions into this, because in the past it has always been that you borrow this money and you are not using for what the money is supposed to. So they are bringing in more stringent conditions, and even the African Development Bank as well, where we have our own personalization of in there. You see, these things are being controlled because they want this to be, well spent. It is not enough to just take money and say you want to have water for everybody, and then there's no water. People still have to continue to dig their own boreholes. So people are not, the international community, not just the Chinese government, we have to take loans from, and in some cases, even in Europe, you have, people just have to borrow sometime. And it is not a new thing that Nigerian is, driving this deficit budget. It's not a new thing, but can we pay it? Yes, we have a reserve as well. Our reserve is, tending towards 30-something billion right now or more. I think, I don't have the actual figure right now, and it's growing. And the more we can build our reserve, and then we begin to build confidence in foreign investors as well. You see, when they went to raise a fund or the bond, and Eurobond, and I think it was just 1 billion or so. How many billion did we? I can't remember the exact figure right now. The people was sold out then because they realized that we had enough. It was not because the shaky government policies. No, they look at it and say, listen, we have enough, and then this government cannot collapse. The government of Nigeria can never collapse, no matter how we look at it. Whether we've weathered through a lot of challenges, even when dollar was too high, even when oil was down. And look at a dollar issue or this petroleum issue. I quite agree with you. The PIB thing is not a good thing. That up to now we've not been able to put it right. But I think they are reconsidering, and people are putting pressure on them as well. But when we look at it, if you borrow, how are we going to service that money? And that is what is an issue to most economists. They say, look, you keep borrowing, and how do you want to? The next year you have to say, okay, we want to service the debt with a lot of percentage of this. When you continue to service your debt, actually you have to service your debt anyway. And that is why most of the states now, they're in a mess as well. So, and like I said, we have to, as we're looking at the federal government, we have to begin to caution the states as well. Because most of the governors in this state, they will not come back again. Some of them are just on their 2 term and they're going away. And they will leave this debt behind. And that will be a problem in this country. That you remember the last time we have to give them money to settle bills. And at the end of the day, look at what has happened. The scandal that has happened with the money that said, look, give you this money is part of what you are going to settle all the salaries and what. And we're hearing stories all about the whole thing.
But the governors say that those monies were not favors from the federal government, that the monies were actually their entitlement.
Yes, if they're entitlement, not an individual entitlement, it's the people's entitlement. People want to see what this money is being used for. I mean, if you have this bonus, call it bonus, put it that way, and you are supposed to pay your teachers, to pay your pensioner, and the people are not feeling it. And then that's not just in something that just take, and now you have a consultant that takes X percentage of it, and nothing is coming up. So we have a lot of problem on our hands right now. But gradually, we're getting out of it. Look at the banking system. The banking system, in some months ago, you heard, oh, people are scared about some few banks, that these banks are going to collapse. And now we have to say, oh, these banks are not going to actually collapse. So a lot of issues that are being tackled, and that's why I say the monetary policy and the fiscal policy. And by the way, the agri-sector profit we mentioned, if we need infrastructures to move even these products from A to B, and it will reduce costs. Right now, we have to move most of these things on the road.
Okay, let's take final thoughts on this matter from Prof.
Yes.
Before we take another moment.
Well, let me put it this way. Again, the philosophy of the lifestyle of our rulers would dictate the pace of this growth and would dictate the future of Nigeria. I mean, you borrow money from all kinds of sources in the name of trying to invest it in the economy to grow the economy. What do you find?
Well, government needs to borrow.
Yeah, of course. It's a general philosophy. Even American government borrows. Right. But what I'm saying is this: what do you do with that money you borrow? It is just to encourage
accountability.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Is a key word here.
You know, the problem is that, just back to what my friend has just said briefly about budget still being proposed because the president has not signed it into law. 57 years of political independence in Nigeria, we are still delaying budget, middle of it, and we cannot say it's advancement.
Okay,
we cannot.
All right, Prof. All right, Prof.
Yes.
We'll take another moment. When we come back, we'll have the home stretch of the program. Stay with us.